Welcome back to KTN News Special, and we're talking matters TVET. I have Professor Ndieki, who is the chair of TVET CDAC, with us to discuss what exactly is happening in the TVET landscape in Kenya. Professor, the issue of funding, because I'm meant to understand that TVET is very capital intensive. I mean, machines are not cheap to buy. So far in Kenya, how has been TVET funding?
Thank you, Kim Kumboy. Funding has been the biggest problem that we have had in terms of funding TVET education or the TVET sector, because the equipment that we require are very heavy and they are very expensive in all areas. However, we have had some good, partners, I would say particularly donors, and in this case, I would like to mention, we'll mention African Development Bank, which has supplied most of the equipment in TVET institutions, in China, and the Netherlands. We have also the Canadian, which have assisted, Italy, and very many other countries which have come in, because it's not easy for the government itself to fund the TVET education. Now, what we have done is that the government is establishing a TVET funding board. And this board will be the one to try and get the funding that will be given, will be assisting in funding all the TVET institutions. But we also have TVET institutions which are owned by private sector, and also faith. And in faith here, let me mention a place like St. Kisito, funded by Catholic. Catholic has funded very many institutions and very many other organizations. And these ones, together with the government, we have managed at least to promote the sector. Otherwise, the funding is a bit too high. One other thing that we will require is some cooperation from I would say, rich countries like USA, which hasn't really come in properly. And things like Germany is actually starting to fund. Germany is funding about 3 institutions right now in Kenya, so that at least the funding will be eased from the government.
Definitely.
And,
And again, based on your wide experience in not only in Kenya but also across the world, because you're observing trends and whatnot, you're saying like in China, what they're doing is they're converting their initial universities into technical universities. And so that is also happening in Germany. Why is that trend? And should we go that direction?
Yes, Kim Komboy, we need to go that direction. But I think the catch is the funding. Because a technical university is as expensive as a TVET institution, because you need a lot of machinery. In fact, it will be much more expensive than a TVET institution. China has a lot of money, and you know it. And that's why they have realized they need now to convert all their 600 universities into technical universities. Germany converted very many years ago. In fact, China is trying to copy what Germany is doing. And Germany is the best when it comes to TVET institution. Other countries which have copied the same from Germany is South Korea and then Singapore. All those countries, if you go there, you can see how they have really progressed. And one of the other things is that if you go to most of those countries like Singapore and South Korea, the education, the TVET or the technical education takes almost 70% of the education budget. In this country, I think we have not reached even 10%. So we are still very far. But the government is really making a lot of effort And if you know, recently the government said that everybody after Form 4, where they got E, can go to any institution and the government funds. Yes. And they are doing it, which is a very good thing, and is something which the government should be commended, which has started. And also TVET, other students, they get also loans, like university student, which is very, very good.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, I think it was a couple of years ago we saw one of the students from high school, I think he scored perfect A's, and he said he was going to a TVET institution. Funny thing is that this was top of the newspapers and whatnot. It was shocking to a lot of people. You've scored A's and you're saying, no, I'm not going to universities and whatnot. The issue of uptake and also the perception of children who are transitioning from high school into higher learning. Is there a shift that we're seeing, or do we still have that traditional mentality, it's all about university?
Thank you, Kimkwebe. I think what we have done for the last, I would say, 2-3 years, we have been trying to sensitize people on the need to have TVET and showing students that the TVET path is the better. Now, if you go to German, it's a very funny, I've been there and I've seen it, I've interviewed a student, it's 70% of the students, they go the TVET path. And I have interviewed some of those students, they will tell you, TVET is for the brighter student. They will tell you that. And the other education is for the less bright. That's in German. The same thing happens in Singapore. The same thing is also happening in South Korea. Now, in this country, we have tried to promote the TVET sector by bringing in fact, the government has enacted a law that will regulate the engineering technology. That's the Engineering Technology Registration Board, which is already in place, and which also recognizes the TVET graduate as professionals. And that was the one which was missing. Because of that, many students now have realized, hey, I think this is a better way. And that's why last year, about 30 students with even A's joined the TVET institution to start diploma. Again, we also changed the rules of being in a TVET institution. After attaining the diploma, one is allowed to continue to do a degree. And your degree, the diploma is about 3 years, and you do a degree for 2 years. That means the student who went to a TVET institution continuously, and what they did, they will finish with the one who joined the university at the same time. But the person who went to the TVET institution has got an advantage that he has got already a diploma. And he had the opportunity of stopping there and go to work and then come back.
Definitely, and that acts as some sort of incentive also for children to join TVETs.
Yes.
The issue of certification, because, you know, you guys deal with certification, and it has been a topic of discussion in the back. Fake certificates, that is one. Two, if people are going into the workspace, is there an intentional effort also from the consumers, like the employers, to make sure that the people they're getting on board are certified? And three, the competitiveness of our certificates. Where do we stand in regards to those three issues?
Thank you. I think that maybe I will try to explain about the competency-based education and training and the competency-based curriculum. Any competency-based curriculum is equal the same worldwide. Whether you go to Russia, if you have, and we are using levels, maybe I will mention, we have, for example, in Kenya and many countries, level 1 up to level 10. Level 10 is PhD. Then we started like in TVET institutions, which is a vocational training center, level 3. Level 3, 4, 5, and 6 is a diploma. Now, if you have a level 6, which is a diploma, it is the same as South Africa, it's the same in Britain, it's the same in America. And again, the qualification you get is actually can be equated anywhere else. And because of these qualifications, we have now the Kenya National Qualification Authority, which makes sure that the qualification we get anywhere, whether it's university, whether it's a TVET institution, they are actually equivalent to any other worldwide. And at the moment, it's only TVET SEDAC, which has already registered the curriculum that we have developed with the Kenya National Qualification Authority.
Okay.
We have around 406.
All right, definitely. And we want to cross over to my colleague Brian, who is in the woods. And it's not in some plantation somewhere, but in the wood section at St. Kizito. Brian, over to you.
No, sorry to disappoint you. We are not in the woods yet, and we are in the electronics department. We are in electronics class right here at St. Kizito in Mwihoko, where we'll be speaking to Dr. Lawrence Gontai, who is the CEO of the Curriculum Development and Assessment and Certification Council. We'll be talking to us about his perspective on all this, the training that has been going on here, and what plans they have next week for the amazing students I've seen here and the projects that they are doing. Of course, we'll be showing you much more later on, but first let's now jump into that interview. Welcome, Kurugenzi.
Okay, thanks a lot, George.
Good to have you. Tell us about what is happening in this TVET institution today.
Yes, about what's happening here is what we call assessment and planning. Assessment planning for the competency-based education, whereby students are informed about what will be assessed against. And this, in this case, they will be assessed against the performance criteria in the occupational standards. And they will be informed about the various critical aspects. They will further be informed about how, in case of they are not happy with the outcome of the results, the appeals that will be expected to do. And therefore, the exam will not even be guarded by any policemen or any security people because they are supposed to meet the industry standard, and that is what will be demonstrating. And therefore, that is the sole purpose of the assessment planning this week, or even today. Then the rest part of the days in this week, we will conduct what we call review of the portfolio of evidence for us to know what they have been doing all the time they have been in the institution. Okay. And then the other week, we will do summative assessment for the various practical activities so that then we can engage them, and therefore even the industry people, they will participate in the assessment.
Talk to us briefly on how to link the trainings here and the industry and the real industry that we had talked about earlier on, linking the industry and the educational platforms that we have, like the TVET institutions. Tell us briefly about that.
Oh, okay. Indeed, what happens here, or what is expected, is that the industry people, through what we call sector skills and advisory committees, they develop what we call the occupational standards, which contains the statements of performance, the key elements required in the workplace. And it is out of conducting the occupational analysis then, and then having the occupational standards, we develop the same curricula. The industry people validate the curricula to see if really it captures what is contained in the occupational standards. The industry people also will participate in the assessment of these candidates. And therefore, indeed, that is when we will say a candidate is competent if the same employers also agree, yes, these people are able to demonstrate the evidence required for the competency-based assessment.
Let's face it, in our country right now, mostly students are told, go to school, go to high school, qualify for university. There is a latent stigma against the TVETs. Talk to us briefly about that. What is the reception like 7 years on after the institution of the TVETs? And tell us, do you think most students are now taking up TVETs as actually first option, priority courses?
Indeed, I may say, Brian, that TVET is becoming a choice, a better choice than even other places of training, because one thing, once you are trained and you have a skill, it's very easy for you to get employed, as long as you are trained against the industry standards, as opposed to other areas. Because now, you may find that, for example, some people having done even a Bachelor of Science, maybe biology or zoo, they are coming back to do diploma in pharmaceutical technology because they can go back now and sell the drugs. Therefore, compare that situation whereby somebody is getting a skill, he can employ himself as compared to somebody who is just going to look for a job elsewhere.
Which brings me to our next question. You are training for skills, and we're looking at getting an opportunity of employment. Are you confident that this training you're giving here can enable the students to sustain themselves, not just as employees, but also as job creators and self-employed people?
In fact, with the current policy of the government to support the MSMEs or SMEs, the people who do come out with the various kind of innovations, and even our own graduates, we train them on what we call the entrepreneurial skills, such that they can go out and really start their own business, how to manage them. And therefore, this person, since he has the skill, and he is trained on how to manage and given business, he is better off.
Let's face it, being something new that is being adopted in Kenya, there have to be a few challenges. Could you please walk us through that and tell us how you've been able to navigate and some of the recommendations? I'm assuming that you're asking about the navigation on the implementation of competence-based education and training. I might say that it has been quite a challenge, but we have succeeded because of the will that we have got and the support we have got from the various players, stakeholders, as well as the industry people. When we call them, they do come and they participate and they give us the ideas. Others, sometimes to some extent, they have been shying off. They didn't want to release the information because they think this is a private enterprise and therefore we cannot release the information on what we do to the other people. And therefore then, through the support of the industry and all the other stakeholders, we have been able to reach somewhere. But then there's a challenge because of the time required, especially for the trainers, as well as trainees, because they must keep the evidence of what they have done from day one up to the last day where they are undergoing the training. The other thing, it's a must that a candidate must be attached to a given industry. And there must be a mentoring tool. In other words, assessment conducted during the attachment. And therefore, it calls really for participation. It calls really for a lot of time from both the trainers as well as even the trainees and the people of the industry. Walk us through the program for next week and how many students are perhaps being examined for certification from this place and what the program for next week will look like.
I think we have an average of 23 students or candidates, and the total number is 23 candidates. Some on manual according, others on automation, simple. I'm sorry.
Sorry for that.
Simple automation.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have been speaking to the CEO of the CDSCC, rather, that is the Curriculum Development and Assessment and Certification Council of the TVETs. And right behind me here, as you can see, are some of the innovations that the students have been able to come up with. Despite the few challenges that Bona CEO has talked about, they've been able to come up with some very good electronic innovations, and the focus now shifts towards, building a country that is able to sustain itself in the innovations, in terms of accepting what we develop locally, and of course, I'm now in a class where students.
All right, indeed, Brian, you had a lit background. As we finish up, I have Prof in the studio. Prof, as we finish up, the contribution of TVET to our country briefly as we close up.
Thank you, Kim Kumboi. I think I wanted to put it this way, that competency-based education and training we end up with the 3 people: employer, an entrepreneur, and an employee. That means we ensure that there is 100% employment in the country. That's the best you can ever have. That's the training that we have started. And we will encourage everyone to go that route.
Definitely.
So that at least we have 100% employment in the country.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Professor Ondieki, the chair at TVET CDAC. And that's it. Very lovely, informative conversation. Thank you very much for watching KTN News Special. I'm Noah Kipkimboy. Do have yourself a good day.
This is KTN News.